Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition in our IBTM Meets series. It's an opportunity for us to get to know some of the leading industry players within the business events industry, and we certainly have one of those today. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Panos Tzivanidis, the Director of Corporate Events and Services for the International Olympic Committee, one of the most spectacular events on earth, as we all know. So, Panos, it's lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So as you know, Panos, today really is about getting to know a little bit more about yourself, about your career journey, and a bit of an informal chat around the business at the IOC, and what it's like to plan what is actually one of the biggest events on the planet. So it would be great to get your insights and for all of our community in the IBTM world and broader portfolio community, really to understand a bit more about all of that. So if it's okay with you, we'll begin.
Let's go.
Excellent. So maybe firstly, a little bit about yourself, Panos. Tell us about you and your career journey to date, and how did you get to working within the International Olympic Committee?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I am originally from Corfu, from an island in Greece. So in a way, tourism was always in my blood, if I can say this. And that's how actually I started. And it's also interesting that everything started here in Switzerland, where I'm actually based, because I started here studying hotel management school in a small village up in the mountains in Crown Montana. I was always interested in the events world, and this I saw it from the very beginning. When I started working at the hotels, I was immediately into the events business of the hotels, and everything turned around, if I may say, when one of my clients in one of my hotel actually invited me to go and work from the other side, to work for a corporation as responsible for their events. And this journey actually lasted quite long. It was with Swift, and it was for the Cybos event in Belgium.
Sure. Yes.
And I have to say that's where really I got into the big conferences and exhibitions and the real industry of major events. After this, I actually had a proposition, and it was the first time from the corporate world and from the hotels for the sports industry. And initially, it was not even with the IOC, but it was the football world. It was the UEFA with the Champions League and Europa League. And this was the first time that I left the banking and the corporate world, and I entered into the sports world, which I have to say it's a very interesting one. The governance around and the organizations and the federations, it is a different world, but a very interesting one. And after the football, of course, I had an opportunity with the International Olympic Committee. Being Greek, there was not second thought. There was not second thought. I mean, working for the Olympics, it was amazing. So that's how I found myself 7 years ago here. So I came to Switzerland to study hotel management, and I'm really thrilled and happy to be back in Switzerland working for the IOC and the Olympic movement.
Brilliant. That sounds like an amazing journey. As a big sports fan myself, I can absolutely see the appeal with that. That's the transition out of the corporate world and into sport. I can only be, I'm sure, very busy, very hectic, and a lot of governance, of course, as you say, but hugely enjoyable. It sounds like a fantastic journey.
Indeed.
Excellent.
So what is your sports team? Is it football or rugby?
Well, being British, that was a big part of my life growing up, and then and basically I grew up and still am a lifelong Liverpool supporter. So at the moment, hopefully, with things resuming, things are good, but it's been a long journey. Indeed, fingers crossed. It has been a long journey, and I played a lot of sport myself, but sadly, age and time has caught up with me, and the body is not able to do what it was able. So now I actually do a lot of cycling. So that's the way that I'm trying and keep fit now, and coaching my son's soccer team. So
good for you.
football is a big part of it, but I enjoy all sports, which is why it's great to have you here today, and just trying to understand a bit about that background is incredible for me personally, as well as I'm sure very interesting for all of our listeners. So maybe if you tell us a little bit more about what your role involves exactly, and how many. So it's 7 years. So that would be, is it 2 Olympics? Am I right in saying?
Actually, it is 2 Winter Olympics, 1 Summer Olympics, and 3 Youth Olympics.
Right,
so
of course.
I did start with the Winter Olympics in Sochi in Russia, and then of course the Summer Olympics in Rio. Then I continue with the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, in between the Youth Olympics, Summer and Winter Youth Olympics. So I have a fair share, and of course. We were all geared up for Tokyo until the COVID situation, but
yes,
no worries. We live also this first ever historical postponement of the Olympic Games, but we're looking forward really, and the Japanese are looking forward to the next year Games. So, what actually corporate events and services we're doing? First of all, just to put a little bit of context, I mean, IOC and the administration of the IOC based here in Lausanne. We are kind of the responsible and the administration of the Olympic family. We are not a huge organization. Some people might think that we're a huge organization, but we are an approximately 600 people organization. Because actually the games we are organizing games, but in reality the games are being organized by the local organizing committees. There is always an organizing committee. So our responsibilities as corporate events and services, in order the audience to understand a little better, it's much more as a corporate event agency within the organization.
Okay, that makes sense.
We are responsible for all the events that IOC organizes. The IOC session, which is the major event, it is we can say the AGM of the IOC with all the members and all the national Olympic committees and the federation. It is the decision body of the IOC session. Of course, all the executive boards, all the other events and fora that IOC organizes, like medical, athletic forums, other conferences that we're organizing, but also all the internal meetings that we're having in the different sites here in Lausanne. At the same time, why the services is there is because also we are encompassing also the logistics and facilities management of the sites, of the headquarters of the museum, of the Olympic Museum here at Lausanne, and also the other sites that we have here in Lausanne. So like that, we can say that we are a department that we are servicing the IOC administration and the Olympic movement. I hope it was clear.
That is very clear, and actually, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea of the scale and the number of events that, of course, sit around that. And I think the analogy around being the corporate event agency of the IOC is probably that will resonate with so many of our viewers, and is a good way to explain it. So thank you.
If I may, Shane, because during the games period, it is also important because our department is not changing roles and responsibilities, but in games times, we are also responsible for all the accommodation, transportation, all the services around the Olympic family. And when we're talking about the Olympic family, it is the IOC members, it is the presidents of the national Olympic committees and the international federations. And all of these events, which sometimes it can be from simple cocktails down to the daily briefings and the big conferences, networking events, is, as I'm saying, everything that is going on outside of the stadium, we are taking care of it.
That's incredible. As an event organizer who, as you know, we're responsible for events such as IBTM World, and I know the amount of work that goes into that. I can only begin to imagine the number of events that take place, as you say, outside the stadium. It must be in the hundreds.
During the period, yes. But then there are thousands, and we will come, I think, later on. There are thousands other events that are organized from many other corporations and other agencies and other bodies and organizations. So it is a very interesting period for the city and for everybody who is involved directly or indirectly.
Absolutely, yes, I'm sure. And having lived and seen the London Olympics in 2012, and you know, it was such an incredible moment for the city. I was talking recently as well to Christoph Tesmar in
Yeah.
Barcelona, and he, of course, moved to Barcelona and began his career in Barcelona around the '92 Olympics. And so, you know, he was sort of talking about that journey. And I think, you know, just those two examples, and there are so many, but just those two really just stand out for me in terms of, you know, changing the perception and the, you know, the reputation of a city. Just really shows the power that the Olympics coming as a host can have on a city, and it really is truly spectacular.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Great, thank you. And so maybe if you could let us know what's sort of involved roughly. I know there are sensitive issues potentially, but in the bid process itself, and how a country sort of considered for hosting.
Well, look, the Olympic candidature process. I mean, it is a long process, but actually the new process, as we call it, has been shaped by the Olympic Agenda 2020. It is actually the IOC strategic roadmap for the future of the Olympic movement, and this candidature process was. That falls under the Agenda 2020 was shaped at December 2014. There is a lot of dialogue, and this is actually the important part, I think. There is a lot of dialogue between the IOC and the candidate cities, and there is a progressive information exchange between the two parties. The cities are encouraged to shape their value proposition and to discuss and to present proposals and potential solutions that will deliver excellent games, of course, but without compromising the field of play for athletes. At the same time, there is a need to meet the needs of the city and the region for long-term and sustainable legacy. We can talk a lot about the candidature, but basically it includes some specific stages, and it is the invitation phase, which is actually not a formal commitment to bid. And then we go, which is a lot of dialogue. And then we go into the candidature process, which is 3 stages with the vision, the games concept and the strategy, then the governance and the legal and the venues funding, and then the games delivery, the experience and the venue legacy. But what is important here is that the main partner, it is the national Olympic committees. So, and this is the party that will be entering this dialogue. So cities that they are interested to participate or to become candidates, they need to start talking with their respective national Olympic committee that actually they have all the information and they can embark into this journey, because it is a journey and a very interesting one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it must be fascinating, and you must have, you know, on all of the Olympics you've had, you must have now an incredible understanding of the cities in which they take place, and you could, you know, almost work in marketing for any of those cities, I'm sure, having learned so much about it. But it seems like, yeah, certainly a lengthy process, but yeah, but I think it's, you know, it's obviously so important to get so many of the details right.
We do have a special team and department that is actually taking care of the candidature process and accompanying the cities and the candidate throughout this process. So we are hands-on, and it's a very consultative process.
Great. Excellent. Well, that sounds fascinating. I'll say it's so great to hear this story and just how it all comes together. It must be amazing, and I can only begin to imagine the moment that you're actually there at one of the Summer or Winter Olympics, and you know that all that many years has come to, you know, so many conversations, so much dialogue and communication between yourselves and the host city, and of course then of, you know, the complete supply chain that goes around hosting an event of that magnitude. And to see it on that opening evening when the ceremony kicks off must just be the most incredibly satisfying moment.
There's so many people that they are involved in the preparation in all fronts. It's not only the candidature, but in all fronts, as you said, the supply chain. There's so many players and so many actors that indeed the day that of the opening of the games, it is amazing, and it is really it's not the end, but it is the beginning of the end of a long journey for so many people, so many organizations, so many companies the city, the volunteers, for everybody. It's a spectacular moment for thousands and thousands, if not millions, of people.
Indeed, absolutely. Wow, that's fantastic. And then maybe a bit about, if we are able, Panos, what about the general channels of running the Olympics? How does that come together?
When you mean about channels, what exactly?
Yeah, sorry. So if we look at the general channels that are involved, and I suppose the channel partners. So if we took to maybe a bit more detail around some of the corporate organisations that help, I know some of the big sponsors, and then maybe understanding a bit more about some of those stakeholders. Also potentially, the lodging and how that that comes together, the travel management, many elements.
So here we can talk for days.
I know, yes.
But it is true that there are opportunities for there's opportunities and involvement for all the different channels. As you said, there is big corporations, big companies that they're the international sponsors or the global sponsors, if you want. But then there is all the local or national companies that they have also active participation, and they have commercial goals, and they have sponsorship opportunities. Of course, for the hotels, they are, if not center stage, they are definitely near the center stage. And airlines, everybody has a role to play. And everybody, that's why it is important, everybody is also being involved from the very early stage. It is important. For the big corporates and for the event agencies, we need to understand that actually participating at the Olympics, even as a sponsor, and trying to make the most out of your presence and participation with your clients, it is an event by itself, which needs careful planning also long time in advance. The majority of the big corporations, they have a dedicated team that is dealing especially with the games time period. They have special hospitality programs, networking events around throughout the period. The majority of the companies and event agencies, if I may say, they're working in waves. So they have literally waves of events with different groups of peoples and different stakeholders, because they want to maximize the exposure of their stakeholders to the games time, not only by period, but also to give the opportunity to as many as their stakeholders and clients to be present.
Yes.
It is really a complicated matrix, and in all levels. You have corporates, you have the federations, you have other organizations that they're related to the sports environment. So you can find actually everybody from every industry organizing something during the games period.
Yes, incredible, and that can't be said of many events that are run globally. That's incredible, and I can only begin again to imagine the scale of that. But we talk a lot in our business, Panos, about the most successful destinations and host cities are the ones that are planning together, that have the entire supply chain very much aligned and all focusing on the same goals. It's integral in each of those partners' strategy to have that event and to host it, and and it's vitally important, of course, to the success that that they're able to do that. And it sounds like that is almost on a much smaller scale, of course, but that is the recipe for success. It's that engagement with everybody throughout the journey, and enabling that everyone has the same goal and that they're able to achieve them as you go through the process.
Thank you for bringing this up, because it's not only about the games. You're touching something that, to me, it's very important for the event professionals and for the events industry.
Absolutely.
It is actually how much a city and the main stakeholders are working closely together for any event, and it's not only the Olympics. And we can clearly see the cities and that they have a very strong mentality of cooperation.
Yes.
They're excelling. They're doing great. And then
Yes.
you have other cities that part of the stakeholders are not so much collaborative, and then you can see that there are some cracks. It is clearly that collaboration for major events or for smaller but important events to bring them into town, it is key. It is a key success factor, we like it or not.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very visible, as you say. Yeah. It is very, very easy to see those that do it well, and those that don't. And of course, now we're seeing more and more of business events actually driving economic and government policy or being a part of the drivers of that. And again, that simply won't work and won't function or stand up without that collaboration with all the stakeholders. Indeed, it's great. It's a very good point to pick up. Okay, thank you. And then maybe just changing tack slightly, Panos, what do you feel the most important elements around the legacy that an Olympics leave behind in the cities you've worked with? What are the sort of the key elements? Does it vary by city, or are there some general elements too?
Well, I mean, legacy and the Olympic legacy is the result of a vision, okay? Because it always encompasses tangible and intangible long-term benefits, and actually hosting. They're just accelerated by the hosting of the games. From 1896 when the first games until 2016, the summer games that I was there. I mean, there were 49 editions of the modern Olympics. There are 42 cities. I think I did know this. I think 23 countries, and I mean, and also edition of Youth Olympic Games. I mean, they have left a lot of benefits, tangible and intangible. I mean, training centers, facilities for the athletes to improve and to train. There is something that it is less visible sometimes. It is the increased enthusiasm for sports that they were not popular in this country. To a degree, there is new diplomatic relations because sometimes countries between them they were never in contact, and there is improved dialogue amongst them. There are sometimes, because of the magnitude and of the work, sometimes there are new professional skills and new career opportunities because the games is not a 1 year thing. As we said, it is a long process. And of course, let's not forget the most important, the global visibility of the cities. Yes. And then infrastructure, upgraded infrastructure, leisure parks, urban. So, I mean, legacy, it is being discussed already at the very beginning of the candidature process because it is extremely important. And again, it was one of the things that in the Olympic Agenda 2020 that I was saying, the strategic roadmap of the president and of the IOC. Legacy is key part of this agenda.
Yes.
It is embedded to the Olympic Games life cycle. And we can see actually that legacy and sustainability, because most of the times goes hand in hand, we can see a tremendous momentum. Already Tokyo is doing a lot, everything possible about the legacy, and they have been hosted. It's not the first time they're hosting the games. Beijing also, it's not the first time that they're hosting the games. So they're building on these legacies that already exist in their territory. And there is great momentum also. Paris is not the first time, and LA. So you can clearly see that the legacy, yes, it takes sometimes time to see the tangible effects, but it's clearly part of the whole life cycle.
Absolutely. And actually seeing it as you go through the process and in the candidature is great, of course, because again, to our point earlier, if it's not already in part of the plan and everyone's not aligned, the chances of its success will be slimmer. So that's
exactly
really, really pertinent. Excellent. Panos, thank you for sharing that. Again, as I say, hugely insightful, and it's great to hear you speak with such passion about it as well. We've probably got time for maybe one final question, if that's okay with you. So sort of, are there any ways that, that you can think of that you support the next generation of event planners? either in cities or actually in your own city now of Lausanne? How does the IOC maybe work in that scenario?
So I will talk in two levels, because also this is something, it goes with age, as you said before. I'm getting extremely interested on the next generation of event planners, because I believe that we do have not difficulties of identifying the new talent, but we have difficulties for many years to define our industry. And as a result,
not agree more, definitely.
And as a result, the younger generation, sometimes they don't even know what we are doing.
No.
So first of all, on our level, and here at the IOC and in my department and in many other sporting associations and other people that I'm talking here in Lausanne and in Switzerland, first of all, we are actively trying to incorporate in our teams young people, which is not for the traditional jobs of execute or do the admin job, but really we're trying to bring them as part of the key events team and the key projects, because I strongly believe that the young generation has a completely different approach on certain things, and especially on communication and networking.
Oh, yes.
They're extremely strong on, and COVID actually, I think, proved this. They're extremely strong on digital communication, something that for us, we need to learn. So by incorporating young people in our teams, we are kind of balancing this lack, if I may say. Yes. At the same time, the project management is a notion that they are not necessarily have the same attitude towards project management. So both we are benefiting. What I think our industry should do, and this is why I am very keen to talk about it, is that we should not be afraid to incorporate young people and listen to what they have to say, not just trying to pass on experience. It is true that there is a wealth of experience in our industry, but sometimes we are not have our ears open to what the younger generation are telling us.
That's very true. I think that is there's a lot to be learned in that regard. I think that putting the younger generation at the front and center of that is a very good way of future-proofing what we do. And as you say, there's so much we can learn from, and equally so much that the younger generation can learn. That's very interesting, and that's certainly a good lesson for the industry and in general.
I think that our industry, as I always like to say, I think our industry has three challenges as we go forward. Is my three T's, as I say. It is time, technology, and talent. Time, because actually everybody is trying to have more time, and we're trying to buy the time of the participants, our time, everybody. Technology is moving so fast that we cannot always be at the front. We just have to follow, and we have to choose. And now with COVID and with all the hybrid events or virtual events, we are entering a new era.
Yes, we are. Yes.
We need,
like today.
Exactly. And then talent. I mean, the new talent, not necessarily, it will not be necessarily the same event professional like we were.
No, that's very true. There is one thing I've heard many times in the last few weeks. I think the one thing that is certain is the change and the uncertainty that follows, and it's how we adapt to that. Panos, that's really great. I think that is probably a great place to end there today. Again, all I can say is I sit here in awe of the role that you have, and just thinking about how wonderful those events are. Thank you for spending an element of your time today to share some of that experience with us. It really has been beneficial, as I say, both for me personally, but I think our audience will certainly value hearing some of those insights, and it's great that you've been able to share them. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you very soon, face to face. Hopefully we will meet again, but in the meantime, thank you again. Stay safe, and we'll catch up very, very soon.
Thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.